Welcome to Witham Sounding Board, a podcast sharing powerful business tips, insights, and trends for those seeking to become a rock star in their industry.
Hello, and welcome back to a special edition of Witham C-Suite podcast series. I am Caddy Thomas, and co-hosting with me today is my colleague, Laura Whitman. Hi, Laura.
Hi, Caddy. Happy to be here. We are both part of Witham's outsourced accounting and fractional CFO service line. If you would like to know more about what we do and how we support our clients, please go to www.witham.com/oasis. Joining us today is one of our long-term and most favorite Oasis clients, the Asher Group. We have with us today John Mendelson, founder and CEO of Asher Group. And we also have with us John's sister, Jamie Mendelson, Executive Vice President, and she also leads the advanced sales team at Asher. The Asher Group helps their clients value and monetize their life insurance policies as part of their overall financial strategy.
So our discussion today with the Asher Group will touch on the region and mission of the Asher Group, why life insurance can be an undervalued asset, and how family, philosophy, and purpose fit into the story and the mission of the Asher Group. Welcome, guys.
It's great to be here. So, John, I will start off with you. How and why did you and the family start Asher Group?
I'll tell you, when I was looking for a business to grow into, I was in my late 20s, and now I'm 53. So I've been doing this for, over 2 decades. And I was looking for something that we can actually help people have a really big, bright future with a huge, market opportunity. And when you think about that, a third of the population is moving into this aging demographic. So that longevity economy seemed like a great place for us to be. And then to top it off, I really wanted some type of really specialization. And I learned about this market called the life settlement market back then, and it grew into life insurance valuation, fee-based type of planning situations, which Jamie will talk about in a little while. So when I decided to get into this, I said, gosh, there'd be nothing better. I have an actual wonderful family full of high achievers. We get along great. So there's not the typical family dynamics concerns about approaching, a new industry, a new company. It took us a few years to coax Jamie away. She was president of a healthcare staffing firm. And then we got her to join the family business, around 3 or 4 years later. But it was just a wonderful time to start something in this really specialized industry. And I know we'll talk about what we do in a few minutes, but that's really, why we started the company. There was a huge opportunity. It's a freight train that's just continuing year after year, 10,000 boomers a day. The first boomers are turning 79 this year, 80 next year. So they're all looking for ways to have the most balance and enjoyable retirement. So we hope to be a part of that.
That's awesome. Jamie, how do you go about representing the policy owner and not the buyer?
Great question, Laura. Thanks for asking it. So as John mentioned, we've been a sell-side advisory firm for over 20 years. We have a team of professionals at Asher, 25 team members that are working on a daily basis with policy owners to better understand their policies themselves, as well as some health details. Our approach to market with the policy owner and advisors like you is to craft a very strong case file for the policy owner and go to market representing them in sale on our auction platform. So the same way that you can sell real estate, art, jewelry in a secondary market, or you might think of other hard to value assets like maybe art or sculptures or jewelry, where you think of an auction house like a Sotheby's or Christie's or Hyman or Heritage that goes out and will create a competitive bidding environment to represent the seller in sale of that property, forcing competition between those different buyers. That's what Asher does for the policy owners that we represent. We have a proprietary auction platform where we are accessing the top institutional buyers that are looking to purchase these life settlement policies, these life insurance policies in the market today. We're usually accessing about a dozen different buyers that each represent anywhere from 1 to 10 capital sources. And we force these private equity hedge funds, pension funds, even large endowments to compete to purchase the policy for the highest fair market value. So by working with the policy owner, the insured, and many times the advisory team, we're crafting the strongest case possible to then represent those sellers in sale and force competition between buyers, driving value. So Asher does not sell products. We don't do investments. We don't buy policies for ourselves. For over 2 decades, we have been valuing existing life insurance policies to then represent and advocate for policy owners on our auction platform, driving as much value for their life insurance policies as possible.
And can you elaborate exactly on what does it mean and how important is it that Asher is independent and an unbiased advocate for your clients?
It's really important. And I think it goes down to one of really the fundamental items that we always want policy owners and advisors to understand is that in the life settlement transaction, this transaction being able to sell existing life insurance policies for an amount above the surrender value, but less than the death benefit, in this life settlement transaction, there's 2 parties, 2 main market participants. There's the seller representative, and then there's the buyer representative. There's a lot of information out there. There's some really good marketers. So it's important to ask your clients or you yourself asking the questions of the parties you're working with of, who does your license say that you have a fiduciary duty to? So Asher holds a life settlement broker license, which says that we have a fiduciary duty, a heightened duty to the seller in the transaction. So no conflicts, 100% aligned with the policy owner to ensure best interest, best practice. So being independent, being 100% aligned with the policy owner is important because it ensures that we're there to advocate for the seller and make sure they have representation. I think most of us will agree in other property sales, having someone advocating for us, someone who knows the market, is considered a subject matter expert, can result in much higher value for that piece of property than, maybe just responding to one commercial or one online ad. Having representation, multiple buyers, multiple bids, really important. John, I don't know if you have any comments to add on that as well.
Sure. I mean, if I think about just, as business owners, we have to value our business periodically. And there's, little chance that I would ever allow, Jamie talked about 2 licenses. We're licensed as a sell-side advisor. On the opposite side, there's buy-side advisors that represent investors, some of the Blackstone, BlackRock, Apollo, PIMCO, state pension plans, US, UK, European funds. And their job is to buy a policy for the least amount possible, which would result in the highest return. Well, as a business owner, I would never allow a prospective buyer of my business to come in and tell me what my business is worth. And I'm supposed to agree with them and say, okay, well, that makes sense. Understanding there's a total misalignment of interest. I would engage a sell-side advisory firm like a Witham, someone, if I want the second opinion, just to really understand what is my business worth? How do I maximize the value of my business? So it's really important. As Jamie talked about, life insurance is an asset. It's a piece of property that's transferable, no different than any other piece of property. And the key is who is helping you as the client manage the expectation levels. What is the policy worth? What does it take to keep it? Or if you look to exit it, what's the upside, downside? So that's why it's important to work with someone who's aligned with your best interest, because there's nothing worse. And we've all had that feeling where we have seller's remorse and that feeling of leaving value on the table. That will never happen when you're working with a sell-side advisory firm in the life settlement market like us, because we have an auction platform. We from a transparency, we show all the bids. There might be, 10, 20, 30 bids and counter bids. If that was your house, you'd be thrilled because you know that you're absolutely getting market value compared to just one prospective buyer what may not leave you feeling as confident.
Just quite impressive. I think for doing this for over 20 years, and one of the key word that I picked from what you and Jamie talking about is advocating, right? Having your client's best interest, right? And making sure there's nothing left on the table. But, even been doing this for 20 years, I'm sure you have questions about, okay, there's a lot of people, even advisors, need to understand, certain aspect about life insurance. So Jamie, 2 questions for you. What do most people, even advisors, misunderstand about life insurance? And then 2, can you tell us about life insurance valuation for estate and planning purposes?
Sure, my pleasure. And I think one of the biggest issues with life insurance is that over the last 5 decades, the landscape of life insurance has changed so dramatically. There's so many different types of products that exist today, policy types that exist today, that it is confusing. I think one of the biggest things to remind our policy owners and other advisors is that life insurance many times is treated as a buy and hold asset when it really needs to be a buy and manage asset. So we've got to pay attention to it. Don't just buy it and, put it in a drawer. Don't just buy it, put it in a trust or on your company's ledger and not take a look at it. On your periodic reviews, annual reviews with your insurance specialist or with your advisory team, make sure that you're running maybe a maturity illustration. You understand what the future premium costs are to keep that policy in force. And also look at your retirement planning, your charitable planning, your tax planning. And if you have an existing portfolio of life insurance or your clients do, is that insurance still serving the purpose and the protection need for which it was put in place? And if it's not, being able to value it like we're talking about today, understand, what are your options? I used to always say in front of an audience that the value of life insurance isn't just the death benefit, but it's assignability. So I think when we talk about life insurance, if we can get in the habit with our clients or ourselves with our own policies and value it just like we would other property, understand what it's worth, because many times, especially if it fits the life settlement market, you're talking about a value over the surrender value, but less than the death benefit. That if any of those protection needs change, planning needs change, or to John's earlier comment, with people living so much longer, we're seeing a lot of this in our business. On a weekly basis, advisors are coming to Asher and saying, the client's looking at their life insurance, it's not performing as expected, or they bought it for this purpose, that purpose has changed. What are their options? Instead of surrender or lapse, will the life settlement option be a better option? So I think getting in that habit of valuing insurance, making sure that we're paying attention to it, understand the future premium requirements to keep it in force, really important. I think from a valuation standpoint, what we focused this initial discussion about was valuation for the purpose of monetizing in the life settlement market. But I think to your comment, we're seeing a lot of advisors that are valuing insurance not to monetize it immediately, but to document its value for various planning reasons. It might be a transfer for value situation, maybe a sale or a gift type scenario where the advisor or the client doesn't want to just rely on the carrier value. It might be as part of a business valuation or succession planning or part of a divorce even, where they're valuing all the property that the business owns or that marital assets paid for, that clients are valuing and wanting documentation of fair market value. I think your organization had a recent newsletter about valuations of businesses and or life insurance, right? I think with maybe it was Connolly that was a focused article that someone within your organization worked. So I think recognizing life insurance as property, valuing it, paying attention to it, just like you would other ordinary property, can be so meaningful.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't remember the commercial or what it is. There's a commercial about an old lady going through her bills, right? And then there's somebody, he's just heard someone's like, "You're sitting on gold."
Yes. Well, that's true. And that's, commercials like that, they're great marketers. They are creating awareness about this industry. And hopefully your policy owners, if they hear that, or the clients you're working with, they know to call you. And then you can delve deeper into this discussion.
Yeah,
absolutely.
A lot of those clients, or excuse me, those commercials, they're actually buyers on our platform, on our auction platform. However, no different than, any investor, they would rather get a better price point and purchase it without an auction, not at the fair market value level. They'd rather get it at a purchase price that's more advantageous for them as an investor than be one of the 10, 20, or 30 offers that we might negotiate. So all those purchasers on TV, we have a healthy working relationship with them. We need them to, have a really healthy life settlement market. But their perfect world is less competition, no different than any one of us on the call trying to make an offer on a house. So we help level the playing field. We help leverage all of the negotiation power of all of our entire distribution and pipeline relationships. So if we're negotiating 500 million of policies right now, we're using that volume and that leverage to get the best offer we can on the individual client of a Witham, business owner or an estate planning client, something like that.
Great. John, what is considered a life settlement? Okay. And when does it make sense to consider one?
Sure. So, a life settlement, it's just the buyout of an existing life insurance policy for more than the cash surrender value, but less than the overall future death benefit. So it's simply, if you think about other ways that clients can receive a buyout on a present value, that's all we're doing. The difference is, because sometimes somebody will say to us, well, John, if this is a good deal for an investor to purchase a policy, then why should my client keep the policy? And the answer is, if they still need the coverage, then they should find a way to keep it. But if they would not purchase the coverage today for the exact same reason, because maybe the insurance did its job or they transitioned out of that original risk, then it's time to look at exit options for doing that. And if you're going to exit any type of asset, you wouldn't walk away from your house without first knowing what it's worth, or a piece of artwork or jewelry. You wouldn't I'm just going to throw it in the garbage. I'm done with it. You'd say, gosh, before I make any decision, let me see what it's worth. And then I can determine what I want to do. And we can help provide that indication of value at no cost. We do it right from the start. We do that in week one. We can look at any available information throughout the entire life settlement process. The insured never has to get examined. It's not like normal life insurance. They don't draw blood. They don't have to go to a medical appointment. The very most we might do to have some type of longevity data point is review existing records, things like that. So this is not an invasive process whatsoever. It's really just about understanding what they have. They would never think about owning real estate or equities and having not any idea what the fair market value is or what it could be worth. You would never put real estate in a trust without knowing what it's worth. So when you have clients that have policies sitting in trusts, maybe in an ILIT, that's probably about half the policies we work with. Sometimes they get a bill one day and they say, what do you mean we have premiums due? I thought that policy was all paid up. And they say, well, kind of good news, bad news. No one thought you'd be living into your mid to late 80s or even 90s. And the kids don't want to have that emotional tug of war of betting against mom or dad. So before they were to cancel that policy or maybe pay a big catch-up premium, they ask themselves or work with professionals like you to say, well, maybe there's another option. Let's see if maybe it could be worth more for you today than the cash value in the contract. Maybe there's a way we can get you back 25, 50, 100% of your premiums, something like that. And then you can reallocate whatever that potential new premium was going to be, that catch-up premium, into charitable planning, into funding a special needs trust for your grandchild without liquidating other assets. Maybe you can use it to pay for business valuations and things for your other companies. So it's life settlements are really just another exit strategy. It could be, you have the 3 80-year-old business owners are retiring and the 50-year-olds are buying them out. And there was, $2 to $5 million of coverage for key person or buy sell on the business owners. And the 50-year-olds decide, well, why don't we value those life insurance policies? Maybe we can use those as the funding mechanism to buy them out. It's just canceling the policies if they're not interested in keeping those. Now you're keeping more cash flows in the business. You're helping fund other growth opportunities within the business. Imagine if you're the CPA, the attorney, the financial advisor that actually uncovered this option and you save your clients 6 to 7 figures or more. You become a hero. And guess what? Nothing makes you less replaceable as a CPA or as a financial advisor than coming up with great options for your clients. Conversely, nothing makes you more replaceable then another CPA, attorney, or advisor coming up with that solution. And they feel like, well, gosh, my CPA didn't bring this up at all, or my advisor never brought this up. I wonder what else they're not remembering, or if they're leaving anything else. So this is a great opportunity. It's so nice that you as an organization are having us on here, because this is one of those really, small potentially solutions that has a huge ripple effect and huge financial impact to the clients that you work with.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be able to provide value, because it does some important things. Even as a CPA or non-CPA or whatever you do, as long as this is professional services, you're advocating for your client, you have to be able to provide value, right?
Imagine with the estate tax exemption now at $15 million, how many clients no longer need their coverage? Well, instead of canceling it for X amount of dollars, maybe you can generate X times 3, 5, 10 of their surrender value. During COVID, we helped fund a lot of clients' home care instead of putting them in an assisted living facility. So this offsets costs to your 50-year-old clients that might be paying for mom or dad's caregiving needs, things like that. So I know we got some time constraints, so I'll keep going.
A couple more of my questions. I'm sure you've sort of gleaned on certain aspects of you're sitting on gold type moment, or when a client say, what is their moment? Do you have a couple, maybe one example of, it has to be anonymous, obviously, that you can share with us?
Sure. I mean, we worked with a local developer at one point, and their business thrived during the majority of their career. And at one point, unfortunately, due to a health condition that became much more significant, they found themselves from the top of the world to, in a position where now they're really trying to determine how's this going to affect their overall retirement savings, their dollars that they gave for philanthropic planning, what they were trying to leave their children and grandchildren. Unfortunately, that client actually had a term policy, because we can work with all different types of life insurance policies, including term. And with that policy itself was about $1 million term policy, and we were able to generate over $600,000 for that one policy. Offers sometimes are 10% of the overall death benefit, and other times it could be as high as 50, 60%. It just depends on the economics. But in that exact example, and we have a video on our website that you can watch that video if any of the listeners want to see that. It's called Joe and Debbie. And you'll hear from real people talk about who knew this life insurance policy, that their attorney, their CPA, their insurance advisors, multiple, never brought up to them, could have a value that was different than what they had been paying into it or what that future death benefit was. And it was this policy that actually turned out to be kind of the saving grace for their whole retirement. And when we see over the years, they give us hugs. Thank you so much. We're present in our children's life. We weren't stressed. Our whole, throughout all these medical bills, it really made all the difference in the world for us. And we were able to stay in our home, and it was just a really nice thing. But I can tell you, we also work with family office clients. I won right now, they have literally, I think it's over 100 million of coverage in their foundation, and they're just closing the foundation down. And right now, by valuing the policies, we're $10 million over their cash value that they were just going to cancel it for. So it's not just for people that are in a really, tough spot. It's also just a proactive planning tool.
Yeah, I think to John's point, the life settlement option, when it's a solution, provides certainty today for policy owners versus kind of the unknown of future premium. We're also seeing, especially within the high net worth affluent marketplace, desire for wealth transfer earlier in life. With people living longer, well into their 80s or 90s, the benefit of that life insurance policy sometimes isn't being given or transferred to Gen 2 or Gen 3 until they're well into their 60s or 70s or older. I mean, we're negotiating the sale of a policy right now on a healthy 99-year-old. So people are living longer. So I think that opportunity, to John's point, you have certain clients that are going to have a need-based sale. They can't afford the insurance, or they're looking for a piece of property, a vehicle to create cash flows today for other planning. But then you also have clients that will make financial decisions where they're going to look at their life insurance and say, do I like the idea of kind of giving while living? We used to only use that for a sale within the nonprofit space. But, this transfer for value earlier on, creating more value if we were going to cancel a policy, even if they can afford it. So, a lot of opportunity right now for all socioeconomic levels for $100,000 face amounts or $50 million plus face amounts in the market.
That was really helpful to kind of hear a comparison of the life settlement and life insurance compared to assets that we're typically more familiar with, like real estate or things like that. So definitely, I appreciate that and hear the actual real life examples. So, all right, I'm going to turn the focus of the conversation a little bit back to the family, as we mentioned at the beginning of the episode, family business. So, John, I will turn to you. I've been fortunate enough to have gotten to know you and several members of your family over the last several years. Can you tell our audience how your family and relationships shape the way that you run Asher Group?
Sure. I mean, it all comes down to, like, our parents are the best. They've been married 58 years. They've had a million ups and downs, like anybody, from health to just life in general. And our parents have really set the guiding principles and the non-negotiables within our life. And even when we named our company, we wanted to have a company name that meant something. And we did want to be at the top of every list. So we did want to have an A for the company name. And we looked for something that really resonated with who we were as people. And the name Asher is actually, you see a lot of baby boys named Asher these days as well, because it's one of the 12 tribes from the Old Testament. And, you know, it talked about happiness and wealth, do what is right, you'll be blessed. And it was just something that wasn't happening in this marketplace 20 plus years ago. It was an unregulated market. There were a lot of things that, you know, that were not happening in a way that we would do it. So we felt when we came into this marketplace, it did so much good for this phenomenal, you know, kind of segment of our population, but there was a void and we wanted to fill that void. And we've led with always doing the right thing. We have an incredible team of people that have been with us. You know, our most seasoned leaders, you know, probably a third of the company has been with us, anywhere from 15 to 20 years. And these are incredible people that care about the clients. So it's really kind of, you know, set the tone of who we are as a company, is always doing what's right, you know, and it'll work out in the end.
Definitely good to have that kind of mission and background leading the employees and leading the business. So do you have any personal philosophies or life lessons that guide you as a leader of Asher?
Sure. I mean, you know, it's always easiest to tell the truth and say what's on your mind, so you never have to worry about trying to remember, you know, what someone else said. When it makes sense to fall on the sword and have accountability, fall on the sword. When you're doing those things, when people know you're sincere and your intentions are always in the right place, things will have a way of working itself out for those clients, or advisors, whomever we happen to be partnering with. If we're not the right match for them, then you know, they're going to find the right match for them out in the marketplace. We love having friends all over the country. I mean, we could pretty much find someone to have a lunch or a dinner with everywhere, because we feel so good about having the same philosophical approach of caring about clients, caring about long-term and long-standing relationships with those we work with. So that's always going to be what grounds us here at Asher. You know, we think about the long relationship. Another one our parents always say is the turtle wins the race. Just keep being you, just keep moving along. You know, things are never as good as they seem, but never as bad as they seem. Take a breath. You know, the best remedy for stress, anxiety, anger is delay. Take a little bit of time and get a little distance.
Yeah, it sounds like you've had some great advice and advisor through, you know, your parents and your siblings as well. All right, my last question for you, John, for our fellow C-suite executives listening to the podcast today, do you have a favorite quote or piece of advice or book to share?
Well, my favorite of all favorites is probably, I'll give you two that are brought together. I love Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, you know, and there's another book tied to it called The Daily Stoic, you know, things like that. The obstacle is the way. And one of my favorite quotes talks about, it says, the impediment to action advances action, and what stands in the way becomes the way. So an example could be, COVID was such a difficult time as a business owner and a closely, you know, held family business. Well, because of that obstacle of COVID, we updated our systems. We got even tighter with Withum's Oasis group. We tightened up so many different areas of our company, our process. We came out stronger from COVID than where we were before. So the obstacle became the way forward. You know, in our life settlement business, the policy might be the obstacle, right? This darn policy, what are we going to do with this thing? And it becomes the way that they can fund their retirement through selling it for 10 times more than the surrender value, or cash flow for their business, or all different types of things. So the obstacle, becomes the way. So that's kind of one of the things that's really helped me really shape my life, is that those type of stories and those books.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Jamie, for sharing your expertise. We've touched on series of really important topics, and we're very fortunate to have you guys come on and talk about your expertise. This is great. Mostly around where everything started from an Asher Group perspective, and why life insurance can be an undervalued asset. And our family, which, by the way, it's my favorite part of what you've talked about, the family philosophy and purpose fit into the story of Asher. Is there anything else you want to talk about? Maybe share with the listeners as to where, they could check you out, website or something they could listen to, just to get a lot more exposure?
Yeah, I would just remind the listeners that you don't have to be a life insurance or a life settlement expert to take advantage of what this market can do for the policy owner, for your clients, for yourself. Remember, before you ever cancel a policy or your clients ever cancel a policy, have it valued. You can go on the Asher website. There's a variety of success stories or case studies. There's lots of articles for the social proof for your beneficiaries, for your clients, articles from various magazines and journals on the topics of life settlement and life insurance valuation, as well as longevity. I think that's one of the key takeaways away from this discussion as well is, longevity, insured's living longer. I'm sure it's impacting parts of the planning that you're doing, whether it's business succession planning or estate planning, tax planning for life insurance as well, understanding age and health of insured for future premium costs, paying attention to that is really impactful. So biggest takeaway is before materially changing the life insurance policy, make sure to call us, make sure to review the asset, understand its fair market value before you materially change it.
Great point.
Another thing that I'd add on to that is sometimes people say, well, if this is such a good deal for the investor, then why should my client keep the policy? And the answer is, one, they might want to consider keeping the policy, but there are two characteristics that these large investors have, these institutional funds, that most clients, even really high net worth successful clients, don't have. They don't have hundreds of millions to billions they're willing to dedicate to life insurance as an asset class. And the key word is willing there. And secondly, they don't have law of large numbers. These big funds that we work with on our platform, they might have 1,000 policies, insured, carrier ratings, product types, health conditions. So you're really diversified, almost a portfolio, almost like a REIT compared to an individual investor that owns one or two properties, things like that. But the last thing I'd also say is that we love doing Q&A and things like this. So any professionals that are listening to this, any families, those that you collaborate with, we do webinars. You can find that on our Contact Us page on our website, Asher Group, ASHAR, so all A's in Asher, GROUP.com. And we can do all different types of educational training as well. We do CE, CPE, CFP, CE. We do, all types of things if it's ever helpful, CLE, and the whole nine. So awesome. we appreciate the opportunity today to share with your listeners. Thank you so much.
Of course. We're happy to have you. Well, I want to take this opportunity to thank Laura Whitman, who co-hosted this podcast with me, and not to mention Alexis Blakeney, that keeps us on point and hold us accountable for the podcast. We are part of Withum's outsourced accounting and fractional CFO practice line. If you'd like to know more about what we do and how we support our clients, please go to www.withum.com/oasis, and that's spelled OASYS. Thank you again, John and Jamie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you'll be first in line to hear what's coming next. Don't want to wait for our next episode? Check us out at withum.com. That's WITHUM.com.